Hey everyone, welcome back to the Intelligent Conversations podcast. Today I have the honor to learn from Jan McInnis. Jan is a comedian, keynote speaker, and comedy writer. She's worked in the industry for 25 plus years, being featured in the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and more. Jan has written from guys like Leno to guests on Jerry Springer. So Jan, thank you for coming on today. But I want to start with this because when I went and checked out your website and did some research on you, you said you wanted to be a comedian since you were 10, and you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you told your parents that you wanted to go buy a motorcycle, ride to Los Angeles, and become a comedian. I kind of want to hear more about that.
I did. My parents didn't quite get on board with that idea. And actually, Josh, I did it in opposite order. I'll backtrack a little bit. I don't have any entertainers in my family. Nobody. Comedian just as a kid at 10 sounds like a fun job. You got to work. You might as well make money doing something you like. But I didn't know how to do it, so I announced that to my parents. But really, I remember graduating from college. I was very lost, and I remember having that dinner the night you graduate. Parents and family take you out to a nice dinner, and looking around and thinking, now is not the time to tell people I want to be a comedian. My parents probably don't want to hear that. So I went into marketing for about 15 years, and it still always had the bug to be a comedian. Just wanted to try it, and I had a couple starts and stops. I took a class. I did really well, and we had to do a little 5-minute routine at the end. And the instructors, it was one of those like open university classes. The instructor, the people who judged the routines were his wife and his girlfriend and his mother. And afterwards they were like, you got to do this, you got to do this. And because it went really well. And then I tried an open mic and it went really well, but I was so freaked out by the lights, didn't go back for 8 years. Wow. And that was during the comedy boom in the 80s. I remember getting off stage and one of the guys who had been a professional comedian came up to me and said, you have got to do this. He's standing with me on the steps at the comedy club outside. And he said, please promise me you will do this. And I waited 8 years, and then I tried one more time. I did. Jay Leno had this comedy challenge where he was trying to. It was to get on the Tonight Show, and he had comedy clubs across the country do contests, and this is where a lot of comedians got started. So I wrote 5 minutes of material, talked into a little mini cassette recorder, mailed it. I didn't know you were supposed to get a video. Mailed it in, got a call about my jokes. I mean, I recorded it walking around my condo. I wasn't, in front of a live audience. Got a call, and my first question was, how many people entered this contest? Because you got to be people, And she said, no, I've got there were like hundreds of people, and they put me on one of the shows in the D.C. area because these contests are going all around the country. And I got there and realized everybody there is a professional but me. Wow. And so my goal was not to be the worst, and I wasn't. And I actually the next day got a write-up in the paper about some of my jokes and how I had some good material but low and consistent. And I didn't win or anything. But I decided, okay, after that contest, that's it. I'm done. And I waited a year, and I still couldn't get rid of the comedy bug. And so I tried one more time. And I went to a open mic. I got on. I had to do 5 minutes. I got 3 minutes in. It was killing. I was doing great. And I thought, I forgot the rest of my last 2 minutes of material, and I thought, they're laughing, get off stage. And so I did, and I'm sitting there doing that whole seesaw thing in my head about, I should do this again. No, yeah. And the MC tapped me on the shoulder, and he says, hey, call Pat tomorrow. And I said, who's Pat? And he said, she runs the club. She saw your act. She wants to give you some work. That changed it instantly. And I said, I'm doing this. And kept my day job for a couple more years while I worked nights and weekends in the comedy world, and then finally took the plunge. I did it all backwards, though. Instead of buying a motorcycle, riding cross country to California, and being a comedian, I became a comedian, then went across country to California, and now I have a motorcycle. Did it all backwards.
But you still did it. I think that's the most important part, though, right? Yeah. Is you told yourself you're going to do something, and maybe you changed up the order a little bit, but you still got it done. I think that's a lot of people can benefit from that. Yeah. And I think that's so cool. So I'm kind of curious, so you did a lot of open mic stuff, but then when I did some like research on you, it seems like you do a lot of keynotes and like teaching people how to bring that into the workplace.
Yeah.
How do you kind of get into that?
Okay, yeah. So I'm doing I'm mostly a keynote speaker now, which is a career I didn't even know existed. Because when you think of comedian, you think comedy clubs, right? And so I went into comedy clubs for years, and worked a lot all over the country. I've worked in every state except Alaska. And then I really kind of had my eye on corporate comedy. When I had my day job, I remember I was in charge of a big event for a lot of CEOs, and I hired the Capitol Steps, which is a comedy singing troupe, and they were really funny. And I remember giving them the check, and it was a lot more than I was making in the comedy clubs. And so I thought, okay, there's some corporate, there's something here. And so I started asking my comedian friends, what about the corporate events? What about conventions? And they were all like, no, it's just Christmas parties. Well, I kept that in the back of my head. I think there's something else here. And so as I toured, I was making my phone calls, and I just sort of happenstance called one guy. I remember I was on the New Jersey Turnpike, and at the time you had a calling card. You didn't have cell phones, and I pulled over at the rest area and called this club in Iowa to get work for the comedy club. And the guy that answered the phone said, "Well, I've split from my partner. He took the club. I took the corporate work. Are you clean?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I don't have any women doing corporate shows." So Keith got me into doing corporate stuff every Christmas around Christmas time in December for about 2 weeks, 3 or 4 years in a row. He would fly me out to Iowa and give me a list of Christmas parties and corporate stuff. And I would drive around and do these for a couple of weeks. And I said, I don't care what money I make. I just want to get a quote from the company saying they enjoyed the show if they enjoyed it. That way I could use that to parlay. So I kind of got in that. There's a few different other starts and stops. My friend Frank King helped me get into corporate comedy. And and I did that for years. And then around 2008, there was a little bit of a recession going on. People said, we want comedy, but we really want a message. And well, okay, I can do that too. So then I got in, and my friend Kent helped me figure out
some of those things,
how to do a keynote. My friend Frank helped me figure out do a keynote. And I just kind of molded my act with a message into keynotes, and I started booking those, and they took off. And I really like the keynotes. They're a lot of humor, but they also have a message. They have tips on using humor in business. Is what my biggest one is, finding the funny in change. And I show people how to use humor to handle change. I like them because there's no nights and weekends involved. All during the day, Josh. And I did so many nights and weekends that I like the last 15 years doing just the keynotes. And I do a little bit of comedy too, but for the most part. Just the
day stuff. That is cool though. I think, man, like I didn't even know that existed at first. I thought, comedy was just straight. You go to an open mic and that's how you get started.
You do work club and you work some bar gigs, and that's really what people think of comedy. But Josh, you got to keep asking questions, keep your mind open to possibilities. And if something sounds a little like, like when I paid the Capitol Steps, make sure you're going, okay, there's something here. There's something here I might want to do. And follow that rabbit hole down until you find different opportunities and things you didn't even know existed. And all of a sudden you're doing something that you love.
Yeah. And I think, that's ultimately what we're all trying to do, right? We're all trying to navigate and find something that we love doing. And unfortunately, some people, they get down this path and they're like, oh, straight the money. And don't get me wrong, money's nice, right? Like who's going to say no? But at the same time, it's like, I remember talking with a guest, and oh my gosh, I'm going to forget the word, but he talked about this Japanese idea where, hey, find something you love, find something that makes you money, find something that, gives you purpose, meaning, and then find something that benefits society. And then you kind of mesh that all together, and then you find ultimately what you love doing gives you a great and enjoyable life.
Well, I think, a lot of people talk so much about, you have to find your passion, and for me, I'm lucky I found it, but I think that's a lot of pressure. I think what you really need to do to start with is to stop right now in your tracks and realize, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you spending your valuable time on this planet doing what you're doing? Maybe you hate your coworkers, but you love the money. Maybe you love the money, but you hate the hours. Figure out what that is and make peace with it so that you're happy in the moment, and then start sort of moving towards what else you want, what other things, more of the things that make you happy, and once you define, I like this, like for me, I love the keynotes. I didn't realize I didn't enjoy the nights and weekends until I'd been doing it for years, and I thought, I'm tired. And these keynotes are affording me not to go and have to get up and headline a show at 1 a.m, and travel around and drive my car into the ground. And then the money follows. I mean, they're you fly out to the gigs, you're paid a lot more, and it's just and it's a lifestyle that affords me to have a life. When you work nights and weekends, and all your friends don't, you have a different lifestyle. So that affords me to buy a house, have a regular life, and people don't understand what it is I do a lot of times. I had a neighbor recently say to me, because you're not famous. I'm not famous, but it doesn't matter. I'm making a great living. But he said recently, he goes, so, Jan, are you still dabbling in that comedy thing? Because he doesn't know. And I just wanted to say, yeah, I'm doing pretty good with dabbling. I just said, yeah, I'm still there. But they don't know,
That's, man. Yeah, and that, again, right, they just don't know that there's so many. It's kind of like, it's the same thing with someone that says, oh, I'm in finance, right? But you don't realize it's like, there's multiple parts, though, to that, right? And there's different jobs, different routes you can take. Like, it's a big industry, and it's kind of like when someone's like, that's what you say, right, when someone doesn't understand, right, what industry you're in. You're like, oh, yeah,
it's what you say when you're on a plane and people ask, what do you do for a living? Finance, and they don't talk.
I do like comedy, or I do, right? Like, you just say the general, but in reality, it's like, I do something pretty specific that helps the planet.
Yeah, and every industry, every career, there's so many different things you can do in it that many in college or wherever you really haven't heard of, and I think you got to just be open to it and look around and see what you like, what you don't like, what do you want to gravitate to.
I agree. I think that's so important. So this is something that I'm just kind of want to ask. You being in comedy and stuff, I know there's a lot of, I don't know what the right word is, like tension around it right now, where people don't know like what to say type of thing, right? It's like kind of like they fear telling a joke. How do you kind of write jokes that...
Oh, like the politically correct, or... I'll say a couple things on that. First of all, I tell any new comedian, be true to yourself. Do the humor you think is funny. If you're going to be dirty or you're going to be political, you probably won't work the gigs I work. But people are paying for your perspective. So, that's where you'll find your voice and be you. Don't try to be someone else. Eddie Murphy's hilarious. He cusses a lot. If you want Eddie Murphy, you don't want me. And, if you want me, you don't want Eddie Murphy. So find your voice. I always try to make, my personal thing is to not do any harm, to not be mean to people, but there are comics who make their living off being, mean. That's what people go to pay for. They go, these comics sell out and stadiums and or whatever, and they make money, and that's their thing, and people know that. So you really just have to be you. People who hire me, they know kind of I'm going to do funny, clean humor. If I start off on a political rant or something,
that might throw them off a bit.
Motivate myself. Yeah. So, but just be you and find the venue that will work for you, and find your audience. I hate to use the word tribe; it's overused. But find the people that want that. And you'll also enjoy it more. You got to enjoy your life, and if you want to be filthy, dirty, have at it. As long as it's funny, as long as there's a punchline. I'm tired of hearing people try to be edgy and they're using the F word and this and that. And there's no punchline. Make it a punchline. Find the make it funny. Make it a point. Don't just get up there to rant. You know,
a lot of it, right, is just. That is a part of it, right? But like facial expressions and then like the tone of voice. It's like if you sound like outraged and stuff, and people are like, man, this guy's acting like an
Yeah.
idiot. It's kind of like when you're in school and you see someone acting like an idiot, you're like, hey, that's kind of funny, man. Like,
Yeah. People find there's all varieties of comedians, and just have fun with it. Find your voice. Do your thing, but make sure you have punchlines and you're not just ranting.
Yeah.
You're really making a point of being
there
funny.
you go.
That's our one job. Our one job description is be funny. The rest is how you be funny is what your personal tastes are. But again, you'll work different venues,
Exactly.
and that's fine. People make a living at all sorts of
And
ways.
what's wrong with laughing, right? Like, there's
Laughing
right.
is
It's good for the soul. It's good for people. I know that you kind of alluded before we started this that laughter can kind of help your health, like, and improve your health. So I've had previous guests, as I kind of mentioned before, that mention laughter yoga, for example, right? That how that helps your health. I'm kind of curious to hear what your point of view on how laughter improves your health.
I've never tried laughter yoga. I did regular yoga once. I can't do that because I got a birth defect. I was born with a spine. Laughter yoga is I've heard of it where you sit around in a circle laughing about nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's a few studies, not a whole lot on humor and health, but a few things over the last 30 years or so that say that laughter opens up your blood vessels. It causes deeper breathing. So you get maybe alleviates the chance of heart attack and stroke and things like that. Even burns calories. One study said 1.3 calories per minute or something like that, which they said is like doing some light indoor gardening. I don't know whose house is so dirty you indoor garden, but but just forget about studies. What does it feel like when you laugh? Don't you just feel yourself feeling better? I just think the fact that we have so much humor these days, people realize the value of laughing. I did an event I do a lot of events at healthcare, but one time a doctor came up to me afterwards. She was from India, and she said they have laughter clubs in the parks, and on the way to work, people stop in and make yourself laugh.
Wow.
And she said, I'm a doctor and I believe in this stuff, but she said, her friends, of course, dragged her to it. And she said, I don't know if it's medically sound, but you feel lighter, you feel better. And they say even laughter yoga, you get benefits of laughing, whether you're laughing out loud or silently laughing or making yourself laugh in laughter yoga. So, you feel better. You feel a little more refreshed, I think, if you've laughed. It's got so many benefits. It changes the energy, nice connection with people when they get your joke or your humor. It's a great way to make instant connection. So I think there's a lot of benefits, health and otherwise, to finding humor.
I agree. I think, again, right to your point, you just feel refreshed, you feel happy. And it reminds me of the one study where they talk about you use more muscles to frown. Why, like, smile? Like, like why spend the extra energy trying to be miserable when there's so many things that are enjoyable and
right. Try to find the humor. Some things are very, very serious, and I'm not saying make fun of those, but you can have fun around those. Like COVID was very serious. You can't make fun of COVID. People died in COVID. That's terrible. But you can have fun with the things that happened, the weight gain, the mass. We had to, you can joke around the subject and find the humor in that. And that's what I tell people when because I've done keynotes and talked about using humor for every kind of subject you can imagine, from healthcare people to education, finance. Yeah. And there's a way to find some humor in your life, regardless.
So I think that's just a natural question I need to ask, and that's, how do you get some of those industries that tend to maybe be more serious laughing?
Well, you know what? First of all, when I do a keynote, I interview the client ahead of time. So I find out some of the inside scoop on them and what they've been dealing with, so I can write a few jokes about them. But also, you got to remember, people laugh differently. Accountants, there are accountants who laugh out loud, but a lot of them don't. And I've been in front of 500 accountants, and they're having a great time, but they're sitting there kind of analyzing the joke. Oh, that's good. They're having a great time. Afterwards, if you walked in the room, you'd think, oh, Jan's not doing so well. But I knew it was going great because they were having fun. They just weren't. They weren't as out loud laughing like the 700 nurses I spoke to last week were just killer, laughing and having a great time, really showing their emotions. And so, people laugh differently. So don't just think, oh, they're a finance person or they have this industry, they're not gonna, they don't have a good sense of humor. They do. Engineers, I just did a big thing for Lockheed Martin, and they were great. Had a great sense of humor and got a lot of compliments. People really enjoyed the event. So yeah,
I think that's cool though, that you kind of take the approach. I mean, that's kind of what you need to do, right? Is you need to find, like you said, your audience, but then also you need to read them too, right? If you're going and talking with a bunch of guys that, like let's use your example, that are analyzing and the joke, oh, that's kind of funny, right? You can kind of throw in maybe some of those sly jokes that most people might miss, and they'll be like, oh, like I caught that, like, and it kind of gives them that little
yeah. Yeah, and humor about what they're going through too. Like what they're dealing with. Sometimes you can have some humor with what they have to deal with on a daily basis, or the clients they have. Or I get a lot of information when I talk to my client ahead of time to find out about the group and the stuff they're dealing with, and you can have some humor because people like that sort of the aha moment. Oh, she gets us. She knows what we do. And that just that connection. You don't even, sometimes the joke doesn't have to be that funny. It's just a realization. Yeah, she mentioned that the copier breaks down every Wednesday or something, and people get that.
Yeah, that's true, right? Like, why would you tell like a copier joke, for example, when you're going and talking to a bunch of, I'm trying to think of someone that's not in the office all the time, right? That maybe they're on the go and traveling, or trying to think of.
Well, what's funnier, I do have a copier joke.
All right, let's hear it.
One time I had let's go to my website. You can hear it, or send me an email and I'll send it to you. But it was really funny because at one time I do it for a lot of groups, even if it's healthcare, they get it because it's about team building and such. But one time a group told me, you cannot do that copier joke, and I said, and that's weird. It's not a bad joke. I've been doing it for years. It's funny. And I pushed it. I was about how does it go? It's hard to jump right into my act. We did team building, TQM. You know what team building is? It's employee empowerment and ownership. So I took the copier. I never owned one of these. And it gets a big laugh. And they said, you can't do that copier joke. And I said, why? There's nothing wrong with this joke. And she said, because we just had a bunch of layoffs and people stole office equipment. And she said, so someone's going to, yeah. I said, but that's going to kill. That joke is going to kill.
Man.
But she wouldn't let me do it.
Yeah, that's crazy. Man. Yeah, it's good you probably talk with them beforehand, not just jump in blind.
Yeah.
Because I mean, just general out there, like some of the more famous, I guess you could say, comedians, when they tell their jokes and stuff, from what I've heard, they just kind of improvise some of them, and I'm like, man, you're playing a risky game, my friend. Like,
yeah, but you know what, you're paying for the that comedian, that big name, to come in, and people love it. I mean, the big name can do whatever they want, and that's the beauty of hiring me, because I'll listen to the client. The big name doesn't have to. You cannot tell Eddie Murphy what he can say and can't say.
Exactly.
If you hire Eddie Murphy, you got Eddie Murphy, and people are going to love him, and they're gonna show up. But you're paying a lot of money. I mean, some of these people go out for $100,000, $200,000 an event, and they're not going to listen to you if you say don't cuss or don't do this one joke. They're going to do it. In fact, they're going to make sure they do it.
Yeah,
because they can.
Once you tell them not to do it, it's like, oh well, might as well do it.
Yeah, that's what a lot of even in comedy clubs. Comedy clubs, I loved it. It was so free, and I don't have people tell me hardly ever not to do a certain joke. But in comedy clubs, they really don't tell you, as long as you're funny. And you're not making their patrons get up and leave, and you're not so insulting people so bad. You can't tell a comedian in a comedy club what to do for the most part. They just as long as they're funny and making people laugh, that's what their job is. So they have a little more leeway as well.
So I'm kind of curious, is comedy clubs like the only way that like comedians can get started, or is there other pathways? Like if someone's listening right now that they could say, hey.
Well, I think comedy clubs are and bar gigs, one-nighters and open mics are the you kind of need to start with open mics, because comedy is one of the few things that you just can't decide I'm going to go up there and do 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour of material off the bat. You can't. Nobody can do that. Hardly. Very, 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 very few people can just get in a comedy club and do it. So you need to get up and practice your stage presence and practice your timing and see if your jokes are even funny. You know what will happen a lot of times in comedy clubs, and I've seen it over and over. Somebody has a sitcom, so they think they're funny, and they're a star, and so they go in to headline a comedy club, and of course they're going to draw a big crowd because it's a big star on a sitcom, and they can't follow the comic who's been doing it for 20 years. They don't have the skills to follow the comic that's been doing it, and they bomb. And people if you're famous, they'll give you about 10 minutes. And then if you keep bombing, if you're not funny, they are furious. I've seen people storm out because they're paid a lot more money to see you, and you're not funny. A lot of these, social media people who have huge followings, and clubs are hiring them, and they're not. Some of them are not that funny, and people get mad when they get there. An unknown like me, I got about 60 seconds when I get on stage to be funny, or you're going to hate me. But a famous person has 10 minutes, and then people get really mad because it's a very hard thing to you got to build up. There's no class you can take, or you can read books and stuff, but unless you're doing it on stage in front of live people who aren't your friends and family in a city that you don't know about, you don't have all the local references and such, that's where you really find the funny, and that's how you build your act. So that's probably the best for you. I don't know how people, TikTok stars and stuff, get on stage and do 45 minutes or an hour without all that background. So that would be the best path, I think. And you don't have to stay there, but you have to. My first couple of years, I probably was on stage at a bar gig or something almost every night of the week. You get yourself, get your act together, so to speak.
I mean, ultimately, right, it's practice makes perfect, right? It's the old adage that they use in sports, right? You need to practice, and you're not going to come out and just be an expert right off the bat.
Right. With comedy, if you're going to be a doctor, you can't decide you're just going to practice. You got to go through school. But a comedian, there's not really a school or somewhere you can go learn to be a comedian. You can read books and such, and it's good. But you really need to get up and really get in front of people, because it's such a different animal when you get on stage, and the lights and all the things are coming at you. You really can't see the audience, and if you don't know how to talk and do your act while you pretend to see the audience, or pretend to look at this guy or that girl, and joke to them, even though you have no idea, you couldn't tell what they were wearing. That's a skill you just have to practice.
Yeah, I agree. Again, practice makes perfect. And I would comment on the doctors. Yeah, you want them to. I would prefer my doctor knows what he's doing, but also on that, he had to practice repetitively over, right, and rigorously study and learn in order to become competent and understand, become a great doctor. So
he wasn't doing it in front of people or what patient, but what patient wants to hear the doctor say, "You're my first surgery ever"?
No one. Yeah, no one wants to hear that. And I think, again, a lot of people, you talked about the TikTok star. I think they don't realize, especially our generation, we're not patient. and in order to build something that's actually sustainable and can last a long time, like a career, for example, you want that to actually last a long time, you need to be patient. Yeah. And I think that's a skill a lot of people need.
Yeah, you do, because if you jump right into comedy clubs, and you might get booked on one or two, but if you start doing really bad, the owners aren't stupid. They'll talk, and they'll also want a video. They'll be like, "All right, I need a video. I need 45 minutes. Let's see what you do." And if you don't have it, you're not going to get booked, and you're going to go downhill pretty quick, and then you really can't get work at what you want to do. So take it slow and see how it goes, and see what works, and how you can really put together your show.
I agree. I think, you should take it slow. And there's a time, right, where you want to jump, right, and act quickly, but there's also a time where you should just let your skills develop and learn.
Oh, sure. And so, a lot of times I've jumped on opportunities. Someone said, "Can you do this?" Yes, I can. And I'm thinking, I know I could figure out how to do that. I'm not 100% sure I could do that. The first time I ever emceed a full day event, I wasn't paid very much at all. But it was a corporate thing. I knew I could do it, but I wasn't 100%, because I'd never done it, but I didn't tell them. I said, yes, I can MC for 8 hours. Yes. And it went great. But, I remember finishing that and thinking, wow, I did it. I knew I could do it. And I had the interest in really, really working hard to do it, and make it right. So,
There you go.
certainly take opportunities as they come along, but
Yeah, and like you said, like there was that instance where you're like, oh, I don't know if I've never done anything like this. Like that's learning, man. Like that's when that's when someone offers you an opportunity, they obviously think, hey, I think you can do this. But then, right, you're thinking to yourself, oh, I've never done anything like this.
yeah, but if you really want to do it and you think it's something you really, really think you have the time and energy to work on and do, take the opportunity if you feel that you can do a good job.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think you hit it right on the nail. So something that may come up, and this is regardless of industry, and I've kind of looked a little bit into your podcast. You talked about like kind of tutoring other comedians, kind of, what's the right word? Yeah, you talked about some of the things they should avoid, and I was particularly drawn to the one about fear of failure. I kind of want to get your thoughts on that. How do you help like people overcome that?
Well, first of all, I think whatever you focus on is what is going to happen. So if you're focusing on this, I hope this joke doesn't bomb, you keep saying the word bomb, you got to get out that. You also, I think, I tell people in business, most people, if you're trying to use a little bit of humor in business, people don't get mad if it's not killer funny or whatever, or it doesn't hit. So they usually appreciate that you're just trying to make it funny, something lighten up the situation. In comedy clubs, they get mad if you're not funny. But you also have to focus on having fun with it, and if you're doing the humor you really think is funny, if you're writing stuff that you think, you'll sell it. You'll have a good time saying it. You'll get people on board with you. So don't think. Stop. People think of, when they think of comedians, they think of bombing, right? Mm-hmm. They think of bombing, and that's what's going to happen if that's all you keep thinking in your head. I hope this joke doesn't bomb. I hope this joke. Instead, think, I'm so excited to tell these people about this. I'm so excited to get up here and share my point of view, and then do it. Don't write a joke just to get a laugh. Write a joke that you really enjoy telling. There
you go. And that right there, right? You need to find what, essentially, right, your passion, right? You need to find what makes you...
and the subjects you enjoy talking about. And then, sure, you're not going to have, some nights aren't going to be great, Sit down and think of, 3 things that went right, 3 things that went wrong. Analyze it, move on. If you don't... comedy is one thing. If you get good or you get out. And a lot of people can't get over the mental thing when they have a bad show. And... you have to move on. You have to not go down that rabbit hole of, oh my God, this is going to affect my whole career. Because then it will. It'll affect what you do in your career. I know some very funny comedians who don't have the confidence to move into something that, maybe in the corporate, or they get so nervous if they have to do a corporate thing. I did a lot of bar gigs, and I didn't do so great in those, and that affected me, because every time I'd walk into one going, oh, they're going to hate my clean comedy about kids. And, and that it starts to mess with your mind.
Exactly. No, I like that one part especially, and I'm going to kind of insert the intelligent question of the day here. And confidence, I think, right, that's the best way to develop confidence is to start with none. It's kind of my way about it, and you kind of have to overcome that fear of failure. But if you had any tips or something to kind of maybe ease the burden, I guess you could say, of developing confidence or coming into something more confident, what would be your advice?
I think I would first of all look at it. What you're trying to do is, what if I do this? What if I don't do this? And if you don't do this, if I don't leave my day job and go into stand-up, for me, how will I feel? Awful. If I do this and give it everything I have, I'll at least, even if I go nowhere with it, I tried it. And so that kind of gave me confidence. Just asking more questions about ask questions. What if I do this? What if I don't do this? What is going to happen in 5-10 years? And then, I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but you got to get out of your head. I mean, you really got to get out of your head and go in with an attitude of, I'm going to have fun with this. And go with the flow, and whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And don't listen to the negative people. I mean, seriously, comedy is subjective. Focus on the people that like your stuff. And, people are going to be mean about things, fine. But I've had people say they don't like this joke or that. It's like, well, then what about your material? Oh, I've never written. Well, then, I had somebody who hated my book once. Never wrote a joke in their life, but hated my joke writing book. Like, screw you, You didn't do it. You've never done this. And a lot of times people who have never done what you're attempting to do are so critical. And you just got to go, all right, you aren't doing this. I am. And most people are in awe that you're doing what you're doing. So go with that attitude, and go in just with I'm going to have fun and see where it takes me.
I love that. Attitude, I think that's such an important role, right? Like, I mean, kind of on the laughter, right? You can choose to be miserable and, right, oh, I'm going to frown, like, screw this, or I suck at this, right? But you also can change and say, hey, look, this is an opportunity for me to succeed here. Or, hey, even if they're critical, you could say, hey, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to learn, and I can improve off this. Now, some people, right, to your point, they're just mean. And it's like, come on, man. Like, that has no substance. And you just kind of have to push that out and realize, hey, that's...
Yeah. And don't let people... I heard a quote from Rosie O'Donnell years ago, and she said, when comics ask me, should I go into the business, I tell them, no, don't. Quit now. She said, because if I can convince you to quit, you really don't have what it takes to stay in this business. Don't ask people for permission. Just do it. Just do it. It's your life.
Exactly.
People it's your life. Don't stop and do what you want to do. And as long as it's not harming people, go have fun with it.
There you go. I love that. I love how you kind of tied this all together. So, Jan, thank you. Thank you for coming on today. But if people want to reach out to you, get a hold of you, book you, whatever it may be, what's the best way they can find you, reach out to you? And you mentioned a book too. What's the best way they can find that?
Website would be great, theworklady.com. I'm also on YouTube and Instagram. I think I have 14 followers, and TikTok 16. But yeah, I'm on all the social media. But theworklady.com is my main website. Nobody can spell McInnis, so I just have to go with something else.
Oh, no worries. I'll post it in the show notes for those of you listening, and you can find Jan. So, Jan, thank you.
Cool.
Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, I appreciate
thank you very much.
So, everyone, as you can tell, that is Jan McInnis. She's a very intelligent person, has great things to share. I challenge you guys, if anything spoke to you guys today, to reach out to her. I'm sure she'd be happy to talk with you. Stay tuned till next week. We have a great guest lined up for you guys. See you guys next week, and let's get after it. Hey everyone, if you liked this episode and would like to hear more, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button. We release a new episode every Wednesday for you guys to listen to. Thank you guys so much for the support that you give. We could not have done this without you guys. If you would like to be a potential guest on the show, check out intelligentconvos.com and fill out the form there. Thank you guys again, and let's get after it.